Ni hao nyang, hello, I am the Dark Fae, and welcome back to Confessions of a First-Time Dungeon Master. As always, if you missed the last session, I'll put a link to it up in the corner for you over here. You can go check it out, catch up on what you missed, and come back here to find out what happens next. So I'm actually going to be combining session 61 and 62 into this one, so let's begin. Okay, so at the end of the last session, the party had decided that they're gonna go with Fernay to see what Zincane wants to negotiate about. They do their preparations. Before they take a long rest, Valhyrie casts Divination, where she can ask a question of her deity, who is Melispa, the goddess of nature. And she basically asks if Zincane is being, like, honest or truthful in, like, his intentions. To which case Melispa replies, or she gets the sense that yes, at least at the time that Zincane made the deal, and that also it seems that there is something that Zincane wants. They don't know what. Loki, he wants to kill the group at kind of the behest of Wistria's, like, punishment for kind of destroying the orb up in the north anyway. So after that, they take their long rest. Basil has his 3 obsidian stakes, and then the Grimknives and Asmodeum kind of give them what items that they were able to prepare. So quite a long list, as I'm still not totally sure if like how happy I am to give them these things, because I feel like it does make sense, because this is a quest for kind of for Fernay and the Grimknives, but like I don't want this to be a precedence of like, oh, we'll give you items to help you complete quests, when it's, I kind of feel like for other, like for like regular or like more mundane quests, it should be like you guys should be capable to do it, to accept it. It shouldn't be like people have to give you things in order for you to take the quest. So I need to sort that out at some point. But for this particular quest, since it is kind of a national problem for the Grimknives and kind of for a lot of other nations as well, potentially. Let's see, Asmodeum prepares the following. Asmodeum gives them each an amulet of proof against detection and location, I think is what it's called, which is an item that basically hides you from divination magic. You can't be perceived through sensors, that kind of a thing. And then he also gives them a circlet of teleportation, which is good for 1 use a day. And then he also has contracted aid from the Ironforge Tower. So like a kind of a small contingent of Warforged and their mages will arrive in Prill to kind of help defend them in case shit goes sideways, which is possible, you know, considering last time. But the Grimknives also give them a couple potions of psychic resistance, 2 potions of greater healing, 4 potions of healing, a vicious rapier +1 for Basil, because it's gonna be hard for Basil to be that effective in combat, since Con became his, like, the stat that he, like, put all of his points into, and then a lot of things are going to be immune to psychic damage, and he's a College of Whispers bard, so, like, his main damage dealing thing, which is Psychic Blades, not going to be that effective, so I gave him a better weapon. 1 spell scroll of protection against evil, since Zincane has kind of devolved or like fallen or become corrupted, so his nature is actually now fiendish. Not so much in like the devil 9 hells way, but more like creature from the abyss, like nasty thing way. And then also 1 potion of speed, which basically provides a person haste for a minute. So they talk strategy a little bit. Ferney and the party kind of agree to kind of hear what Sinkane has to say, and kind of devise a signal for if she actually wants to take whatever deal potentially he offers, or if they're going to jump him. So basically, if it's an agreement that she wants to actually follow through on, she'll answer using like the Grimknife plural, talking about like the ravens or the unkindness or the Grimknives. But if it's a no-go, then she'll answer with like a singular I. So that's kind of the subtle, I thought it was pretty good, like a subtle code as to whether or not they should attack. Because the last time I think they were like, we really should have let him talk more. And then, so now this time, they're maybe gonna let him. So with that, I think everyone distributing their items and preparing spells and such, with that, they, with Lady Erelda and Asmodeum wishing them luck, they head into the tunnel of this miniature nightmare-like plane. So as they walk, it's kind of an unsettling sort of space as they're walking. They can occasionally see like the silhouettes of large looming creatures, or some that kind of press up right against the barrier to just kind of stare at them. Every so often they can hear whispers or screams or wails of agony. And it's kind of also like temporally or kind of planar shift like, where they keep walking and it's hard to judge distance and time and like how far they've actually traveled. And it seems like they travel for maybe 20-30 minutes, or maybe is that an hour, I can't quite remember, before they see kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. And they notice that they're coming upon Sinkane's tower at the end of it. Luckily, with their amulets of proof against detection or location, Sinkane's not able to detect how many people are there and who they are, so they're able to pass through this gateway, this pathway, without issue. If they hadn't, might have gotten a little bit dicier, but luckily they all agreed. They almost didn't take all of the amulets, and I was like, I actually didn't quite prep this, but like if you don't, you're gonna get So luckily they did, and then they arrive at the tower entrance, and the tower looks kind of similar on the outside. It's just this large, tall, dark obsidian kind of tower with these two very impressive, like large double doors that now face them. Ferney kind of goes up and knocks, and then the doors swing open, and they enter. And they walk through to a space very similar to the foyer that they had fought through the first time, except minus the sort of magic circle and the statues. And Sinkane is standing on the second floor with two of his gibbering Mouthler pets kind of flanking behind him, and he sort of welcomes them. And Ferney, she's a tough lady, she kind of just strides forward and starts kind of a conversation with him. The group kind of as bodyguards kind of following behind her. And here I didn't want to reveal too much. This is a little weird because now I'm having a conversation with myself, right? Half as Ferney and then half as the Oni. And so Ferney is kind of a little bit like fed up. She's very poised and kind of acting like it's gracious for her to be here, which is, you know, she's a badass. And so she kind of is telling him to kind of get to the point. What is it that you want, and why did you call us here? Whereas the Oni, Sinkane, is kind of taunts her a little bit. It's like, you brought quite a few people with you. You must be quite scared. That kind of a thing. So the Oni doesn't actually reveal what it is he wants, which is the group. But kind of mentions that Vernay or the Grimknives, whoever, have as something that he wants, and he would be willing to strike some sort of a deal in exchange for it, since the Grimknives are desperate, and like they the Oni like will have plans to kind of further what he's already been doing to like kind of spread this darkness further across South Kalios. So as they're talking, though, the group kind of pick up on weird like presences, like these little mental kind of, as if there were multiple people kind of in the room but no one physically there. And this is similar to something that they felt when they fought the Nightmare Amalgam back in Remure, where like it seemed like there were a lot of different minds just present. And Sinkane is able to kind of reach out with his mind to touch the minds of any like living or insane creatures, and is able to kind of glean information from them kind of passively. So they do have like the amulets against detection and location, but this is a little bit different. This is more of like a mental link, kind of like the force of his almost like psionic powers. And so as he's like talking, he kind of slowly comes to the realization that the people that Vernay is with are in fact the Favorable Five, now 6 plus a guy. And with that, he kind of smiles, backs up a little bit, and then like claps his hands together, and they are kind of transported into this now warped, twisted version of the tower. He disappears. The kind of second floor landing that he's standing on grows these spiral staircases, like twisting up towards it, and they're standing on this kind of dark, roughly hewn, almost obsidian-like ground, and in front of them are 5 familiar statues. The one in the center, which is on a circle already, is the statue of Fear, which is this rough humanoid kind of shape, but with kind of a large kind of gaping mouth, like blank eyes, and just like multitudes of arms sprouting out from it. And behind it and around it, not on circles, are the similar effigies of death, unknown, monsters, and pain. But the Fear effigy, however, immediately starts to come to life, and we roll initiative. So this Fear effigy has been rebuilt by Sinkane and is a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than the previous ones, in that it has kind of taken a couple aspects of each of the other effigies. So basically, instead of just rolling initiative for one creature, the Fear effigy, I rolled initiative for all of them. And on the other effigy's turn, the Fear effigy would basically make an attack based off of pain, fear, unknown, or monsters. That way, action economy, just gang up on one and kill it that quick. So combat ensues, and it takes them a while, because these effigies have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical weapons, and many of them don't have magic weapons or don't use them sometimes, so it's like slow going, and then sometimes like big bursts of damage, and then slow going again, and it's hard to gauge what their DPS is per round. Not DPS, damage per round is, because it's so varied. Sometimes they do like 5 points, sometimes they do like 30, and it's like, how do I balance encounters when you guys are so inconsistent? But Fear effigy uses fear a lot to its advantage, but they all kind of save actually on the Frightening Visage. So because he was either afraid or he got stunned somehow. But yeah, the Fear effigy kind of makes a lot of kind of mind warping spells, as well as its claws. Its claws, if they hit and you fail a con save, can cause you to become paralyzed. So, you know, paralyzed with fear, which is kind of the scary bit. But eventually they are able to dispatch it, and Basil is the only one who goes unconscious. I did roll some attacks randomly, it's always Basil. I don't know. I don't know. I'm honestly really surprised he's not dead. But after they dispatch it, they kind of quickly try to decide whether or not they want to deal with the other statues, since, well, they kind of learned from last time that when the statues weren't broken, when they were up, Sin'Cain was able to use them in their final fight against them, and it was sucky. It sucked. It's hard. Let's see. So, but actually, we ended that session right when combat was finished. The next session we picked up right there, and they quickly healed Basil up somewhat, and then after a bit of investigation and considering, they saw that there were 4 tunnels up on the 2nd floor landing, but they decided to try and dispatch the rest of the statues in order to get rid of that aid for Sin'Cain, which is a good thing, because Sin'Cain's got a lot of new powers, and if he had those too, it'd be like, oof. But, so what they realize is they decide to go after monsters first, and so as they're pushing it, so they realize that all the rest of the statues move with it. So with 7 people, 6 level 9s and a level 16, which is Ferney, I wasn't about to let them just, you know, one by one just gank all of the statues, so it was either they kill all of them or they leave them all. So they push the statue. They all just decide to surround monsters, push the statues on, and as it activates, they all just like quickly make all of their attacks and just jump it and bring it down actually quite low. Not quite dead, but to like tens of it, maybe like 20 tens of HP. And then combat one more time. They kind of tried to focus the statues kind of one by one, like monsters first, and then pain / death kind of at the same time, and then unknown was the last. I think that I got three of the kills with Ferney, partly because I rolled like natural 20s and with sneak attack. At her level 11 rogue, she's 66, so it was a lot. I did a lot of damage with Ferney, because she kind of has kind of OP weapons as well, but like she's a fucking head of a assassin. She can't be underpowered. But I think Basil actually got one of the last how do you want to do these with his new rapier, so that was really awesome, even though the player himself wasn't here, but he got it. But yeah, so kind of just a quick sum up of like what the creatures can do. Pain is like pain attacks like with a whip and which can wound you, kind of like a weapon of wounding, so you will take necrotic damage depending on how many wounds you have. And she also like gains health from like the wounds she inflicts. Monsters is kind of has like a variety of attacks from its different limbs and heads. So it's got a fire breath, scorpion stinger, bite claw, corns, and is also immune to fire because it's like a chimera-like creature. Unknown is a bit beholder-like in that it fires different beams with different damage types, so like acid, fire, radiant, thunder, etc., and those are rolled randomly, which is kind of lucky because could have been bad if I had chosen who I wanted to target and like down. And then death is, well, death. He has an ability that like if you fail a con save by more than 5, you drop to 0. Luckily that didn't happen. And then he uses like claws that can deal necrotic damage and reduce your max HP until the effigy is dead, etc. So the combat kind of took all session, but eventually they were able to dispatch all of them, and no one downed this time, which is good. Kind of hurt down to like low health, but nobody died. Nobody downed, which means Tsunkane doesn't have a thing that he can do, although they do need to roll a wisdom save because they decided to take a short rest after the fight and then decide like which tunnel they want to go through. So they're now going to go into the next chamber, which previously was the library and was my favorite room, and this one is probably the most involved of the tower part 2. I did pare it down, so it's not going to be as long or as like difficult or like as much of a crawl, but I think the rooms are still like pretty unique and have pretty interesting mechanics and can still have pretty bad consequences as well. So hopefully they'll learn to navigate these quickly and and aren't too spent before reaching Tsunkane, because they're not going to get a long rest this time. Not with what Tsunkane experienced last time, and not with Wistria's kind of pissed off at themness. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. See how they get back. Anyways, that was session 61 and 62. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for notifications when I put out new videos. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!